Welcome to the Antioch Podcast, designed to nurture knowledge, cultivate creativity, heal the heart, and strengthen for service. Thanks for listening, and welcome home.
Good morning, church. How are we doing today? Ooh, was that a good ooh or? Okay, just making sure. They're bad woos, for sure. This morning when I got here, Brian asked me how this week was, and I literally had no idea. I'm like, I don't remember this week at all. Does anyone else feel that way? So, felt like so much, and I don't even know what the so much was. It was just one of those weeks. Guys, I'm excited to share with you this morning. I'm going to be... A couple weeks ago, I shared my testimony. Shared with you my story and the process that I had to go through in my journey to finding God. And the process of learning to give him everything, learning to trust him with everything, learning to make him my Lord. Not just my Savior, but my Lord. And what that looks like and what that was like for me. And let me start with this. In Luke 14, you don't have to turn there, I'm just going to read this. Starting in verse 28, it says this. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he's able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, he'll send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. Our word of the year is bold, and we're looking at what does it mean to live a life following Jesus boldly. And I think this is an incredibly important place for us to begin, is this idea of counting the costs. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Let me say it a slightly different way that might connect a little bit better. Following Jesus is good. Like, if a salt loses its saltiness, what's the point? If a follower of Jesus stops following him, what's the point? If you call yourself a follower of Jesus, you call yourself a Christian, a Christian, but you're not looking more and more like him every day, and you're not following him every day, what's the point? You're like salt that's lost its saltiness. And then if you look at what he says, this is Jesus, don't get mad at me. It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. You're going to ruin the manure. What is manure made of? Oh my gosh, you're going to ruin my poop. You're going to ruin the crap. Please stop. It's such an intense perspective that Jesus is giving here. Like, you have to count the costs and understand there's an incredible cost to discipleship. But the one thing we seldom talk about is the cost of non-discipleship. And the thing is, cost of non-discipleship is far greater than the cost of discipleship. The cost to follow Jesus is everything, but the cost to not follow him is even greater. In my journey to try to find God, I had to count the cost. Both sides. The cost of choosing to follow Jesus and to give my life to him, or the cost to walk away. I hit a point where I realized I have to make a choice here. So today, I'm going to talk about the cost of not following him.
Wow.
I'm about to talk about the cost of not being a Christian, because it's important for you to consider. I hear people talk a lot about, like, you know, they're Christian and they're following God and they're doing all the right things, and then something didn't work out the way they wanted to, and so they gave up on God. Which I kind of want to just say, okay, that's fine, but do you understand the cost of the choice that you're making? Do you understand what you're choosing instead? So today I'm going to talk about the absurdity of life without God. And this is something that I had to struggle with. I remember being 5 years old, and this will tell you probably a lot about me. I remember being 5 years old, laying on the grass at my next door neighbor, Brian's house. We were best friends, me and Shmoo. That was his name for some reason. I don't even know why. Me and Shmoo, we were playing catch for a while, because that's what you did when old people like me, when you were kids, you played catch. Because it was either that or Pong. And Pong, like, was cool for like 10 minutes. And then it's like, okay, I can't play Pong anymore. That's enough. So we would go and we would lay out in the grass after we were exhausted from playing catch. And we would stare up at the trees and at the clouds going by. And I remember being 5 years old thinking, this is beautiful. Like, I don't think I used that vocabulary, but I enjoyed looking at the trees and the clouds, and I realized there's something to this. And then I thought about the fact I only have 95 more years. As a 5-year-old, I was convinced everyone lives 100 years. That seems like that was the number. I don't know where I got that. I don't think my parents ever told me that. But as a 5-year-old, I thought, okay, everyone lives 100 years. And I was laying there enjoying the feel of the sun, looking at the beauty of the clouds, and thinking, I only have 95 more years. And then I die, and it's all gone. There's nothing more. I was a 5-year-old existentialist. I don't even know how that happened. But I remembered that day, that afternoon, I got up and I left Shmoo, and I'm like, I gotta go home. And I was just like depressed. I had like a deep, is there anyone, I'm just curious, don't lie to make me feel better. Is there anyone else that remembers being 5-year-old and thinking about those things? Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so scary. I'm so sorry, you guys. We should like get together and yeah, let's weep. But I realized in that moment that it didn't matter whether it was 95 years or 950 years or 9,500 years. Eventually, it's all going to end. And once it ends, I'm not going to remember it at all anyway. It's just all going to be gone. I will cease to exist. As the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre said, several hours or several years makes no difference once you've lost eternity. And it wasn't the idea of death itself that bothered me. It was my death. Like, I was kind of okay with other things dying. That didn't bother me so much. It was the fact that I am mortal, that I am going to die. I am going to cease to exist. And that weighed really heavy on me. I mean, it would cause me, as in my time growing up in high school and in college, every once in a while, I would think about it again. I'd be reminded of it again, of my mortality, and it would send me down this spiral. And I would just lock myself away in my room and try my hardest to think of something else. I would try to fill my life with distractions so I didn't have to focus on it. I definitely wouldn't spend time alone. I would always be at someone's house or talking to someone because it was a heavy burden. Now, I pray that none of you have ever had to carry that burden. But the thing that's important for us to realize is that I am going to die. You are going to die at some point in time. And not just you, but the universe itself is going to cease to exist. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the universe is using up all of its useful energy, all of the useful heat. Here's a quote from Boston University, a study or a paper they released. It implies that the universe will end in a heat death, in which everything is at the same temperature. This is the ultimate level of disorder. If everything is at the same temperature, no work can be done, and all the energy will end up as the random motion of atoms and molecules. There will be no light. There will be no heat. There will be no life. Only the corpses of dead stars and galaxies, ever expanding into endless darkness and the cold recesses of space. A universe in ruins. This is what happens if there is no God. There's no way around it. This is the scientific view of life. If all we have is that which is natural, and there is no supernatural, there's nothing beyond the natural, there is no God, this is the only possible outcome. So not only is the life of each individual person doomed, the entire human race is doomed, the entire universe is doomed. There is no escape, there is no hope. As T.S. Eliot said, this is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. So what does that mean? These are the consequences of a worldview where there is no God. As much as we try to ignore it, as much as we try to talk it away, there's no getting around that. If there is no God and there is no eternal life, life has no ultimate meaning, ultimate value, or ultimate purpose. For some reason, I was obsessed with this idea as a 5-year-old. And it followed me through. And I spent my life fighting this idea, trying to find a loophole. Friends, there are no loopholes to it. You can find temporary meaning and temporary value and temporary purpose in the same way that you could find temporary meaning in the money of a Monopoly game. But as soon as you walk away from the Monopoly game, the money has no meaning. It has no value. It has no purpose. You can't do anything with it. It's only while you're playing the game that it means something. And so the best you could do is try to play a game where you pretend it all means something. So let's take a look at these one at a time because I think it's important. I'll be honest with you, as Christians, we don't think deeply enough about our faith. We don't think deeply enough about what if God isn't real? You should think about that. It'll help you, if nothing else, to appreciate what you have. Every once in a while, I think about what it would be like if I hadn't met Corey and we didn't have our kids. And the thought of that, I won't even entertain you with my thoughts of what my life would be like had I not met Corey. It's pretty ridiculous. But as soon as I think about it for a little bit, I realize how thankful I am for what I have. It makes me never want to give that up. So let's look at these one at a time. This is going to be a little bit more of a teaching, a little bit more of a philosophical approach to stuff, but I hope that's okay. Yeah. So first, there's no ultimate meaning in life. If there is no God, if there is no eternal life, your life has no ultimate meaning. No life has any ultimate meaning. Mankind is a doomed race in a dying universe. We came onto the scene relatively recently in the age of the universe, and we will be gone and extinct relatively soon. In the timeline of the universe, all of humanity will be just a small blip, and it'll be gone. It'll be a flash of light. And then it'll disappear forever, never to return. In the book of Ecclesiastes, which reads a lot like existentialist philosophy, it says this: "Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return." And throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, you hear this refrain over and over again. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Or meaningless, all is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. The word there is the word hevel, which means like a mist, or like the smoke from a fire. And if you try to grab onto it, it's just smoke. It'll go right through your fingers. For I don't have time to really go into all of the book of Ecclesiastes and how you read the book of Ecclesiastes well to understand what's going on. But I want you to understand the book of Ecclesiastes is diving deeply into this idea of what is it like if there is no God. And it's saying everything's just like smoke. It's just like a flash, and then you're trying to grab onto it, and there's nothing to grab onto. There's no point to it all. People used to ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Philosophy used to be obsessed with this idea. What is the meaning of life? And it was a conversation worth having. But as philosophy and the universities began to move more and more in an atheistic perspective and a naturalistic perspective, the question disappeared because they knew the answer was there is no meaning in life. It's a meaningless question. There is no meaning in life. If there is no God, there can be no meaning. There's a play by Samuel Beckett where he was trying to express this very idea. It's called Waiting for Godot, where two friends are standing around waiting for a third friend to come. And the entire play is them just having random conversation. And then the play just ends. The friend never shows up. There's no resolution. And Beckett is trying to say, this is life. We keep waiting for something. There's nothing coming. We keep waiting for what you're not going to do anything. Life is just a meaningless conversation with people that doesn't really lead anywhere. He wrote another play afterwards which I'm just going to say, if I bought tickets for this play, I'd be really mad. But the play was, all the audience was seated, lights went off, the curtain comes up, and on the stage was just scattered garbage everywhere in silence. For 30 seconds, the curtain was up, and then they dropped the curtain. And that was it. And he's trying to make a statement. He's saying, this is life. He's trying to be a prophetic voice for a naturalistic worldview. And say, this is it. This is it, people. There is no ultimate meaning in life. Life is like scattered garbage on a stage, or people having random conversations waiting for something that's never going to come. If there is no God, there is no ultimate meaning in life. The second is no ultimate purpose in life. Sorry, this is depressing, but let's go. There is no answer to the question, why are we here? because there is no why. You're not here for a purpose. There's no design to the universe. There's no telos. The best you could answer is, like, how did we get here? That's probably the best you can do. But you can't answer why. Why is a foolish question. You don't exist for a reason. You have no purpose. You're just an accidental byproduct of time and chance. That's it. You are simply a clump of molecules in motion. All of our accomplishments, everything we do, will eventually come to nothing. So what's the ultimate point of doing anything? There's no purpose to your life. Paul even reflects this idea in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 29 through 32. He says this, if there is no resurrection and all I do is only for this life, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. There's no purpose to you doing anything. Why would you do all that stuff? There's no reward eventually. You're just going to die and disappear. As will all of humanity. As will the universe. There is no ultimate purpose. I've recently, with the help of Ben, put some, what are they called? Lights on my house. Like garden lights. You know what I'm talking about? Like Malibu lights. Yeah. The low voltage lights. Because it's really dark on my street and I wanted to do that. And I had Ben, as I tried hiring someone, they're like, oh, it'll be $9,000. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm not spending $9,000 for a couple of lights. So we put them in, and the transformer that I got for it, you have to set the clock so the lights know when to go on and stuff like that. The clock was broken. So I would set the clock, and as soon as I'd set it, after 3 seconds, it would reset back to 12 o'clock. So I tried resetting it again, put the proper time in, bless you, 5:25, hit the enter button, held 1, 2, 3, 12 o'clock. Okay, let me try one more time. Set it to 5:25 or 5:26 now. Hit the button, 1, 2, 3, 12 o'clock. I tried resetting it. I unplugged it, plugged it back in. I called customer care. I did all the things. Here's the point. If there is no God, you trying to live a good life, you trying to do good things, is no different than me spending the rest of my life trying to set this clock, because eventually, in a very short amount of time, it's just going to reset. Nothing you do is going to make a lasting difference if there is no God, because nothing will last. Can you make a temporary difference? Yeah, I could set the clock properly for a matter of 3 seconds. And all of your life and the life of everyone that you will know, if there is no God, is in the length of time in the universe, is like 3 seconds. It's actually much shorter than that. Imagine trying to play Monopoly. Do any of you like Monopoly? Okay, we will pray for you after service. That is a demon for sure. We will cast that out of you, and you will be free. And those who Christ has set free are free indeed. The most frustrating thing about Monopoly for me is the setting up the game and fighting over who gets the car. Those are the two biggest frustrations, the car and the horse. Once those are gone, what are you going to be, a thimble? It's terrible. Who chose these pieces? Imagine setting up the Monopoly game, and those of you who have children will appreciate this example. Every single time you set it up, you're like, okay, let's play, kids, and your toddler comes in and just knocks the whole thing off the table. And you're like, okay, let's set it up again. And you reset it up again. You're like, okay, kids, come on. As soon as they come, knock the whole thing over. How long are you going to do that? The point is this. If there is no God, that's life. You spend all this time setting up the Monopoly game, being a good person, trying to do good deeds, trying to help people out when you can help people out. You try and do all this stuff, get it set, but there's nothing that comes after it except it gets knocked over and everything comes to nothing. If there is no God, there is no ultimate purpose in life. The third one, and there's no ultimate value in life. To think that humans are of any greater value than a termite is to be guilty of speciesism. You're just another step in the evolutionary process. If there is no God, there's nothing special about humans. You're simply a link in the evolutionary chain. And remember, evolution is a naturalistic process that doesn't design or make things a certain way. Things don't, like, we use the word evolve a lot of times to say, like, oh, it moved to something better. That's not what evolution means. Evolution just means it changed. It didn't increase in value because it has no value. It just changed to something different. So humans aren't better than apes. We're just different. Not better than termites, we're just different. That's it. The DNA just mutated in a different way. It's not making progress towards something, it's just changing. The only equality on this view, and I am all about equality and fighting for equality and the importance of equality. Don't you think equality is important? If there is no God, the only equality exists because none of us have any value. If there is no God, morals are just an accidental byproduct of evolution. They're not objectively true or false, better or worse, good or bad. They're just like eyelashes or big toes. Like, maybe they'll help you in some way to accomplish something, but they're not true. Ultimately, there's no difference if you choose to live like a Mother Teresa or a Hitler. And if you're having a hard time imagining how this could possibly be true, first of all, congratulations, you're not completely broken. But aside of that, I'm going to step on some toes here. This is a year of bold. Yeah. Think of how most pro-choice people view abortion. It's just a clump of cells. It's just a clump of cells. It's not a person. But you guys, if there is no God, and we are just the accidental byproduct of time and chance, we're all just a bunch of clump of cells. That's all you are. There's nothing special about you that the clump happened to clump this particular way. And so whether you decide to help people with your life or you decide to exterminate them, morally, there's no difference because there's no such thing as morals. This was the defense that Jeffrey Dahmer, if you know who he was, a serial killer, they did an interview with him and he said, the moral value of any action is 0. So if I kill someone, it doesn't matter whether I kill one person or 1,000,000 people, because 1,000,000 times 0 is still 0. If there is no God, there is no ultimate value in your life, in any life. Nietzsche tried to help his fellow atheists. He's probably the most famous atheist. He tried to help his fellow atheists understand and to count the cost of atheism. And he wrote a play called The Madman. And in the story of the madman would go out through the town with a lantern. It is based off of a Greek story, but a Greek philosopher who would do something like this. But anyway, he would go around saying, I seek God, walking around with his lantern. And everyone would laugh at him. Be like, look at the madman, he's such a fool. And then they would mock him like, oh, maybe God's busy. Maybe he can't come and help you out right now. They're like, oh, what a fool, he believes in God. What an idiot. We're so much more refined and evolved than him. Then, writes Nietzsche, the madman turned in their midst and pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God, he cried. I shall tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how have we done this? How are we able to drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What did we do when we unchanged the earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there any up or down left? Are we not straying as though through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night and more night coming on all the while? Must not lanterns be lit in the morning? Do we not hear anything yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? God is dead. We have killed him. How shall we, the murderers of all murderers, comfort ourselves? The crowd stared at the madman in silence and astonishment. At last he dashed his lantern to the ground. I have come too early, he said. This tremendous event is still on its way. It has not yet reached the ears of man. Nietzsche's telling his atheists, listen, you have to count the cost of what we've done by saying there is no God. We have lost ultimate meaning in life. There is no meaning. There is no purpose. There is no value. And who can comfort us now? The biggest problem with this worldview is that nobody can live consistently this way. You can't do it. And so, like me, being that kid and growing up with this perspective, every day was an attempt to escape it. So the options, you basically have two options if you want to maintain this perspective that God does not exist. Here are the two options. Option number one, to live a noble lie. To know, okay, I know there is no ultimate meaning, value, or purpose, but I'm going to live life as though it does because it makes me feel better. I'm going to try to be a good person and do good things because, even though it's only temporary, it makes me feel better. Basically, what you're saying is, I'm going to take the placebo. It doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't change anything, but it makes me feel better. That's what a placebo is. You guys know what a placebo is? The problem is, placebos only work if you don't know it's a placebo. If you know it's a lie, trust me, I know, I've tried. If you know it's a lie, you can't convince yourself to believe it. You may deceive yourself for moments at a time, but at the end of the day, when no one else is around, you have to deal with the lie that you've been choosing to live. This is probably one of the most popular ways to deal with it. You have, how many times have you heard someone say this? Oh, the universe must have made this happen. What does that mean? Like, is it so bothersome to say God that you just replace it with universe? And like Carl Sagan, famous atheist, even for him, when he would talk about the cosmos, right? There's this famous TV show that he had, and anytime in his writing or in his different things, when he would talk about the cosmos, he put a capital C on cosmos. As though he could kind of imbue what we do with God with capitalizing the H in He and capitalizing the L in Lord and capitalizing the G in God. He put a capital C on cosmos. Or in people who say, I just believe in love. Love is just a synapse firing in your brain. What do you mean you believe in that? It's no different than the synapse fire for hatred. Or for, cookies. It's all the same. What do you mean you believe in it? What is it going to do? It can't do anything. It has no power. The universe can't make anything happen. The cosmos isn't personal. But the most common way that we deal with this worldview is to entertain ourselves to death, literally. If we can distract ourselves enough, if we can watch enough Netflix, if we could go on enough vacations, if we could have enough experiences. For me, this was my big one. I just want to experience everything. If I haven't done it before, I want to do that. One of the more popular ones when I was growing up, whoever dies with the most toys wins. And don't fool yourselves. A lot of people do this with religion. Distract yourselves with religion. We distract ourselves so we don't have to deal with it. We entertain ourselves to death. And that's it. If there is no God, those are your options. Live in incredible depression, understanding the truth. Believe a lie and try to believe it as much as you can, or try to ignore it for as long as you possibly can, and hopefully you can ignore it long enough that you die and don't have to deal with it. That's it. As there is no other option if there is no God. If nature is all there is, that's it. But what are the consequences of Christianity being true? Well, as far as meaning, how you live your life matters. Every single choice that you make will echo through eternity. Every word you utter, every action you take has eternal consequences. And make no mistake, that's scary too. Count the costs. Matthew 12:36, Jesus saying, "But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken." Hebrews 4:13, "Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give an account." I mean, that can seem pretty intense and scary too, which it is. But there's also incredible good that comes from it as well. Matthew 6:20, "Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." Everything you do has meaning. Nothing is hevel. Nothing is just a mist and will disappear. Everything you do, every action you take, every word that you speak is a seed that is planted into the ground of heaven and will grow and bear fruit. What about purpose? If Christianity is true, you are not an accidental byproduct of time and chance. Psalm 139:14 says this, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am designed. In another verse, God says, you are his poem. Do you know that? You are a poem that God has written. You're the apple of his eye. You are created and designed to accomplish a purpose. For the naturalistic person, for the person who does not believe in God, your eyes are not for seeing. They just happen to see. Oh, lucky chance. Your nose is not for smelling. Your ears are not for hearing, because the word for implies design and purpose. But as a Christian, we understand your eyes are for seeing. That's what they were made for. That's what they were designed for. Your ears were designed so that you could hear. Your hands were designed so that you could serve. Your feet were designed so they could carry the good news. You as a whole are here for a specific purpose. God was intentional when he made you. You weren't an accident. He meant something very specific by you. You have a call and you have a purpose. Ultimately, our purpose is to enjoy God. That's a crazy thought. Your ultimate purpose. It's not about doing good works and going out and serving the poor. And your ultimate purpose isn't about going to church every week and making sure you give your tithe and please do that. But that's not your ultimate. Your ultimate purpose isn't even to serve God. It's to enjoy him. To worship him. Not worship like you better sing those songs and read the Psalms and you better do all these things to worship me. No, worship him like, oh my gosh, have you tried a double-double? When someone comes in from out of town that's never been to California, have you ever tried In-N-Out? You've got to try In-N-Out. That's worship. I enjoy it so much, I need to let people know about this. That's worship. That's true worship. Oh my gosh, you have to try the Bloom coffee maker. Come on, Andrew, where you at? He's here somewhere. Nice. Have you tried the scones at Arcade? Oh, the strawberry chocolate. Get out of town. That's worship, guys. When you enjoy God, which is what you were made for, you will naturally worship him in spirit and in truth. It's that and to advance his kingdom in this world. That's your specific task right now. One that you can only do in these days on this earth. Not only do you have meaning and not only do you have a purpose, you have value. Every single one of you was created in the image and likeness of God. Your value is not determined by the materials that make you up. That's not your value. Your value isn't determined by what you can do, what you can accomplish. It's not determined by how strong you are or how fast you are. That all has to do with your purpose. Your value This is a $100 bill. It's all the money I have. Now, the materials that make up this bill are no different than the material that makes up a $1 bill or a $5 bill or a $20 bill. Same materials. This has a completely different value because its value isn't determined by the materials that make it up. Now, what if I told you that this $100 bill, I was able to trace it by its serial number, and I was able to follow its path. This $100 bill was used to purchase slaves. This $100 bill was used to pay for prostitution. This $100 bill was used for buying drugs. It was rolled up at one time to be used to snort cocaine. This $100 bill has done some horrible, horrible things. Knowing that, if I offered you, would you like this $100 bill in light of that? Are you going to take the $100 bill? Yeah, right? Because the value on this bill isn't dependent upon what it accomplished. You know what determines the value of this piece of paper? Its maker. The treasury, the maker of this piece of paper, determined that has value. And as long as you're in its kingdom, it maintains that value. It doesn't matter what it accomplished. It doesn't matter what it's been through. It doesn't matter what it's made of. If it's been beat down, broken up, it still is worth what its maker said it's worth. If God is real, if Christianity is true, your value is determined by your maker. You are fearfully and wonderfully made by him. But your value isn't just in that. The ultimate value of life, you have an opportunity to become a son or daughter of God. This isn't automatic. It doesn't just happen to you. It comes through marriage, by choosing to marry his son, by choosing to be adopted by your heavenly Father, to become a co-heir with Christ. You can choose to be royalty. Now give me just a couple more minutes to close. I want to be clear about something. Looking at the costs of not believing and the costs of believing, they both have a cost. No mistake about it. Looking at the outcomes is important, but ultimately we want to find truth, not just what makes us feel good. That's important. And I want to be clear, what I shared with you today in no way proves that Christianity is true. But you should at least know the consequences of it not being true and the consequences of it being true. At least you know what you're getting yourself into, one way or the other. You'll forgive me, I'm a bit of a mathematician, although my wife might not agree with me. Oh, sorry, inside joke. Blaise Pascal, Pascal's triangle, famous mathematician, had a radical transformation and became a believer. He died, I think, at the age of 39, and what he accomplished in that short amount of time is staggering. But before he died, he was gathering ideas to make a book about, an apologetic book about why you should believe in God. Those random writings were collected and released as the book Pensées. Or Pensée. I don't know how to say it properly. And one of the main ideas in that book is something that has become known as Pascal's wager. And I want to close today with Pascal's wager. Basically, he said this: considering the reality, considering the absurdity of life without God, the consequences of naturalism being true, and there being no God, when you think about all that that has to offer, and then when you consider the consequences of Christianity being true, and you think about all that that has to offer, if there is no strong evidence in one direction or the other, if the value of the evidence in both cases are equal, he suggests that you should choose to believe that Christianity is true, even if you don't know for sure that it is. And basically, this is his argument. If you believe that Christianity is true and you are right, you gain eternal life. You gain meaning and purpose and value to life. You're able to live your life without having to try to deceive yourself all the time. If you believe and you're right, you gain eternal life. If you believe and you are wrong, well, at least you are able to live a life where you felt like you had meaning, value, and purpose. You've lost nothing by believing in Christianity and being wrong. If you don't believe in Christianity, instead you choose to believe in naturalism, that there is no God. Well, if you don't believe in Christianity and you're right, you gain nothing but despair while you're alive. If you don't believe and you're wrong, you have lost everything, both in this age and in the age to come. And Pascal argues the wise person, the rational person, the reasonable person should choose to believe in God, even if there is no evidence that he's real, because if you're right, you win. If you're wrong, you lose nothing. If you're wrong, or if you choose to not believe, you lose everything. Either way, it's lose-lose. The wise and rational person, reasonable person, should choose to believe in God, even if there is no evidence. But what if there is good, solid, strong evidence that God does exist? What if there are reasons to believe? That's what we'll talk about when we continue this series.
Thank you for listening. To continue the journey, you can find us online at iamantioch.com or join us next Sunday.